So far away, Nisha, what movie do you get the most big scared of?
That's a hard question because I don't really get scared by horror movies anymore like I used to. But I remember this particular film we're talking about today scared the crap out of me when I saw it in the cinema.
Yeah, as it did with a lot of people, as we're about to discuss. To say that Paranormal Activity was a big hit would be an understatement of such massive proportions the gravitational pull it would produce would suck in birds and small aircraft. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. Yeah, okay, so a fact that has a lot to do with, of all people, Steven Spielberg, and if he's to be believed, a DVD that was haunted. So how much do you know about the production of Paranormal Activity, Nisha? Because it is a weird film. Like, in terms of how it got made. To the point where there's a documentary on it I watched on a plane once that was really interesting, and is where I'm cribbing most of this information from.
Ah, I didn't know there was a documentary on it, because I don't really know that much about it. I just remember, like, when I saw it, I thought it was real at first, because it ended, like, it was no credits or anything, so I was like, oh, it must be real. But,
talk about it in a moment, because that was like a deliberate thing on behalf of the filmmaker.
Yeah, I don't know much about the actual production.
Okay, well, the production was largely undertaken by one guy, and I have his name here, an Iranian movie buff called Oren Peli. And his basic idea was, what about if your house was, like, really haunted? And that was it. He was just, like, wandering around his house one day and was like, what would it be like if my house was haunted? But he thought, what would a modern house that was haunted look like? Because, you know, you have all those old movies and it's, like, improbably creepy.
Yeah, you always get the old, like, you know what I mean, like the old mansions and stuff like that are obviously haunted because they're so old.
It's the kind of house they don't build anymore. A relic of a time when the world wasn't in such a hurry. The Amityville Horror.
But at the same time, they're so unrelatable to the average, like, movie-going audience because they don't live in houses like that. And Peli thought to himself, what about if there was a haunting in a house that looked like the one that people live in? You know, a normal person house. Like, not like a big old mansion like in 13 Ghosts or something like that. And that was basically his entire reasoning behind the film. And he filmed it on location in his own house.
Oh, really?
Yep. And according to him, he made only a couple of adjustments to his own house to make it look more cinematic, which is code for, like, rich white people lived in it.
I think that's
I got a big one.
I think that's my favorite quality in you.
That's the thing, because, like, it's a nice house, but it's one of those houses, it's an improbably nice house, isn't it? Where just, it's so, like, that staircase, which ends up becoming like a character in its own right in the movies. Because, like, you look at that staircase in that first Paranormal, like, Activity movie, and you think, that would be lethal in a house with children.
Yeah, isn't it? Like, you go up one flight and then turn and go up the other, is it?
Yeah.
Like that, because I think my old house had stairs like that, and they were really slippy, and I fell down them so many times and, like, fell into the wall at the end.
Who's there? Hey, come inside. What the fuck is going on? Come out!
Well, admittedly, yeah, that's a scary set of stairs. Like, no set of stairs will ever beat the set of stairs in The Exorcist. When you look at them, you just go, like, even if it wasn't a movie about people being possessed and, like, you know, killing themselves, those stairs alone are terrifying enough, because, like, they would fucking have you.
Hold on, let me have a look. Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, like, look at The Exorcist stairs. Like, the whole plot of the film is, like, a guy fell down those stairs and got so fucked up that, like, his head turned all the way around. And the police are like, well, obviously he just had a bad fall. And, it, like, the priest in the film's like, how can you have such a bad fall that your head turns all the way around? And you look at the stairs and you go, well, maybe that would turn your head all the way around. There's some lethal fucking stairs.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like the house we're in at the minute. Like, every time I have visitors, they're like, your stairs are so steep. I'm like, yeah. I'm surprised I've not fallen down them yet, because that's something I tend to do, like, as you witnessed at that house party where I just fell down the stairs.
Oh, yeah. I've seen Nisha, like, deck it down a flight of stairs many a time before. We'll bring it back to Paranormal Activity. Like, the movie languished in development hell for years. because no movie really wanted to take a chance on it, and Pele used a lot of his own money to make the movie, and he wanted to stick to his original idea of just ordinary people in a house that ordinary people would live in, albeit, you know, a bit more extravagant, you know, to, like, you know, explain why they've got cameras everywhere, sort of thing. Like, they've got a pool, which not everybody has, but at least it's more relatable than having, like, say, a drawing room, or, like, you know, a bell tower that a ghost lives in. And he went out of his way to hire actors that had never acted before to sell the realism aspects. You mentioned when you watched it, you thought it was real in the back of your mind, yes?
Yeah, even though this was like, it came out when I was in college, so I was studying media. So I shouldn't have fallen for it, but I was still like, God, that seems so real. What if it's real?
Yeah, and it plays into the same thing that the Blair Witch Project tapped into, where in the back of your head, you know it's not real, but it's presented in such a way where you can question that, and because you can question that, that's why it becomes scary. And Pele was very aware of the Blair Witch Project's success as a result of this, and that's why he hired actors and actresses who never acted before, so that when a trailer came out, you wouldn't look at it and go, well, it's obviously fake because I know who that person is.
Yeah.
And like the behind-the-scenes screen test stuff is kind of adorable because the two people who did it were like your just stereotypical struggling Hollywood actors where they were taking improv classes to try and, like, you know, just, oh yeah, I need to boost my improvisational skills. I do improv classes and stand-up comedy, and I'm taking, like, you know, I'm working as a waiter on a weekend. And they came into the room and just they pretended to be husband and wife. And the director had never seen anyone do that. It's like, that's it, they're the people there.
1, did we improvise any dialogue? Yes. There's my dog. We actually improvised all of the dialogue. In all of them that I was in, for sure the first one.
No, yeah, like you said, because they're not famous actors, it's just, it makes you buy into that realism. And just something else that, like, really freaked me out. I remember, because I went to the cinema to see it, the use of sound as well. Like, they don't use the typical, you know, horror jump scares or music. It has like a deep rumbling that builds up, and you can feel yourself like feeling really tense, and that terrified me.
Okay, and I think with Paranormal Activity, their use of sound is really good in the sense they don't use it very much. Like, there's not really much of a score. And like I said, yeah, they use like this like ethereal, loud rumbling noise that you can't quite tell is like your own imagination building up the situation, or if it's something present in the film. And it is something present in the film. They just use very low rumbling noises, a sound known as infrasound, which is sound that is imperceptible to the human ear, but causes great feelings of dread and uneasiness in most people who listen to it. And it's something that's common in a lot of horror movie soundtracks, and is present in the roars of large animals like bears and tigers, which is why the roar of a lion or a tiger just feels unnatural and scary on like a primal level. Yeah. That's just one of those things that, you know, many horror movies and pieces of media that employ horror elements will take advantage of.
Suddenly it's like, why do I feel super uncomfortable? It's because we've got a low sub-bass frequency. Maybe it's quiet, maybe it's loud. It doesn't really matter, but it's there, and we know something bad is going to happen. That's like textbook horror move right there.
Regardless of whether your ears are picking them up, the sounds still have to move through the room. They pass through your body, and your body does not like it when they do.
But, you know, like you said, like their use of, like, you know, just the quiet escape. And I think Paranormal Activity simultaneously, like, revitalized and they kind of ruined horror movies, because Paranormal Activity just, it didn't invent, but it greatly popularized the nothing happens, bang! Just the room explodes.
Yeah.
And it has, like, you know, that iconic shot. It's like the lady in the kitchen, and just every cupboard door at once explodes open.
Yeah.
And, like, would it surprise you to learn that the actress was not told exactly how loud that explosion was going to be or when it was going to happen?
Nah, 'cause I think they'd want, like, a realistic reaction, so that doesn't surprise me.
So for a lot of those jump scares, what they would do is they would just say, okay, we're filming pickup shots, because there's a lot of, like, boring pickup shots in that movie, isn't there? That's what makes those jump scares so surprising and so, like, shocking, is because, like, you know, you think you're just watching just someone eat their breakfast. So they tell the lady, yeah, just pretend you're eating breakfast, we're going to film you, and then bang, all the air cannons go off.
Yeah, you would shit yourself.
So Joe, her reaction, like, I think her reaction is so genuine, because it is. Just that thing where she just like goes, oh, holy shit! shit! That, where she completely seizes up. It's like, that's so realistic because it was her genuine reaction to that shit happening.
I think we've like, I can't remember what it was. We've talked about a film before where a director like did something for real, like scared an actress.
Oh yeah, there's so many examples of that, yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many examples because it just gets the best reaction.
It does, yeah. We were talking about The Exorcist earlier. The guy who directed that, I think William Friedkin, was a super old school movie director, and one of the things that he would employ is having a gun. And he would fire a gun into the air randomly to make people feel on edge.
That's it. That's what I'm thinking of.
So during the scene where the two priests are like reciting the Lord's Prayer and their hands are shaking.
Yeah.
The reason their hands are shaking is because Friedkin would fire a gun into the air and then walk up and slap them across the face to get their adrenaline pumping.
And Billy went in and slapped him across the face.
He belted me right across the chops and backed off, and I went in the scene, and if you look at that carefully, when I'm giving the last right, my hand's going like that. And I wasn't making my hand go like that. That was sheer nerve juice. All I had left.
He looked at himself and wanted us to cut his tooth.
And when your adrenaline's pumping, you shake. And a good actor could fake that, but if you've not got an amazing actor, but you want to get an amazing performance out of them, just slap them across the face a little bit.
Yeah. You've got to be a bit mean.
It is a bit mean, that's why you're not really allowed to, like, yeah, that guy was bad. Like, he nearly broke an actor's neck to get a reaction and stuff like that, yeah. There's a reason why we don't make films like that anymore, but you can still look at those scenes and think, fucking hell, how did you get that reaction out of an actor or an actress? And it's like, well, we hurt them for real.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that, like, okay, that scene exists and it's awesome, we can never do it again.
Yeah.
It's like, when, like, stuntmen get injured doing a stunt, and it's like, well, it'd be more insulting to, like, the stunt person to not put it into the film because they got injured doing it.
Yeah, it's like they got injured, so you need to make use of that. Otherwise, it's just like, well, I got injured for no reason. You need to use that take.
And one of the best examples of that is, like, I think the second Mad Max film, where a guy legitimately, like, broke his leg doing a stunt wrong and just, like, pinwheels through the air at, like, 800 miles an hour. And they left it in the film still, like, you couldn't fake that. Like, you couldn't fake, like, the guy legit got injured and was nearly killed, but it looks so fucking rad.
Oh god, worth it.
Well, yeah, I think we talked before, like, in a comedy movie example, the film Hot Rod. Like, Andy Samberg broke his leg doing the film's first stunt.
Oh, shit.
Can't beat the real thing.
You can't, and that's, like, when bringing it back to Paranormal Activity, that's what the director did. Like, he just told the actor and the actresses, like, we're just going to film something normal today. And then he'd do a thing like dragging her out of bed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's one of the best scenes, because you're that actress. Like, this is why I give them props, because they were, like, this is their first role. They fucking went for it. So in the behind-the-scenes footage where they were talking about, like, okay, we're going to drag you out of the bed, the lady's like, do it again. I can do it better. Do it again. She wanted them to, like, do it even, like, more aggressively, so her reaction could be even more genuine. And she legitimately would fall asleep. Like, they would film for, like, an hour until she fell asleep and then drag her out of bed.
Oh my god.
Like, the two actors would legitimately go to bed and then fall asleep, and then they would do shit like that to them.
Oh my god.
Commitment to the role.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's all very interesting. It's time, though, to talk about Steven Spielberg's involvement with the film.
So how did Spielberg get involved with this?
Well, he wasn't involved with the film in any official capacity, but do you want to mention the film was in, like, development hell for, like, a long time because no one wanted to take a chance on it?
Yeah.
A DVD, like, rough cut of the film did exist, and it's noted that Pele would go and he would, just tweak that endlessly. Like, he was one of those people where it's never finished, but there was a rough cut that existed at DreamWorks, and it somehow ended up in the hands of Steven Spielberg, who asked what it was, and they told him, oh, it's a horror movie, and everyone internally thought it was very scary. They just didn't know how to market it, because how do you market a film where nothing really happens and there's no one in it that you know? And they knew it was scary, but they didn't think they could market it. And Steven Spielberg took the film, watched it, and came in the next day with the film in a garbage bag. And okay. You might think that sounds like a pretty, dire condemnation of the film's quality. And when Steven Spielberg was asked, why are you bringing that film back? You only had it yesterday. Do Do you not like it? Why is it in a garbage bag? He just said, I want it out of my house. Like, what? And I watched it, and some freaky shit started happening. I don't want it in my house. I don't like it. Get rid of it.
So he thought it was actually haunted?
He thought the DVD was haunted, yeah. Like, he said some stuff happened in his house that he couldn't explain, and he didn't like that the DVD was making him question that, because obviously that's what happens in the film, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's just an ordinary house. And then, like, a door just, like, opens like that.
That's so weird.
And that's not very scary, but when, like, you know, you're properly into the film, and you're sat in your house, and you see one of your doors open at, like, you know, 2 inches, that can freak you the fuck out.
Yeah, that is creepy. It reminds me, actually, when I used to like binge watch paranormal videos on YouTube. Like, people would just be talking about their experiences, and I'd hear just a random noise in the house. I'd get that thought of, am I inviting ghosts in by watching ghost videos?
Or is it like just like you're more aware of, like, you know, the noises your house makes when it's selling?
Yeah.
And like, I still think one of the hardest I've ever like jumped in my life. And it's one of those things where it happened and it's so embarrassing what it actually was. And it was a box of cereal fell off the top of my cupboard. But it landed so perfectly flat that it made a loud banging noise. And it happened while I was watching a film in my front room while the lights turned off, and just a box of cereal fell and landed perfectly flat and made this god almighty smack. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Cereal on the floor. I'm like, god damn it.
Oh, it's like, but what made it fall off?
It could have been a ghost. It's like, the thing is that I'm editing these videos now, and I have used the X-Files and Stinger way too much, because to me, I still find that shit funny.
Yeah, I've used that so many times in editing.
Because it still cracks me up when you do it, because it's so dumb. But, bring it back to Paranormal Activity. While you think having Steven Spielberg himself being like, this film's like really scary, get out of my house, would encourage someone, somewhere, in the studio to take a chance on it, they still weren't convinced that a film starring no-name actors would be a success. And it's one of those situations where you can understand the frustrations of the director, because the entire reason the film was so scary and so effective, and the reason why people like Steven Spielberg were scared of it, is because it starred people no one had ever heard of. It adds that, like, you know, that air of authenticity to what's happening on screen, and is why it was so unnerving for people to watch for a first time. And the studio still would not like greenlight it without there being a known actor in it, and that was really frustrating for the director.
But didn't they do the same thing with Blair Witch Project though?
Yeah, Blair Witch Project, that's exactly what they did. They even told the actors in the Blair Witch Project not to do any PR, because then people would know that they were alive and that it was a fake movie. Like, they hung up fake wanted posters, like saying, like, these people are missing, do you know where they are? And the actors were instructed to go into hiding, basically, and just not do press or interviews, because people were looking for them, to sell the fact it was real.
That's such a good idea.
It is, yeah, and that's why it was so frustrating for, like, you know, the director. Like, the whole reason it's so scary is because you don't know who they are. And eventually, like, he did relent, and the movie studio wanted to buy the rights to the movie purely to remake the entire thing. Like, they liked the idea, but they wanted to remake the entire thing with known actors and a bigger budget.
No, that wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked, but what the director argued is, okay, I'll let you do that on one condition. I'll sell the rights to my movie, you can do whatever you want with it, but I want one screening with my version, with a test audience, and I want, if you do end up making a new movie out of it, put my original movie as an extra on the DVD. Which seems pretty fair, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was, they went to a theatre, I think in like West Hollywood or something like that. They got like 200 people in, and the director stood outside, and half an hour into the film, he was like, he put his head in his hands because people were just leaving. People were walking out of the cinema in droves. And he was like, oh no, it's over. My idea, it doesn't work. And then someone had the bright idea, why don't we actually ask people why they're leaving? And an executive who was stood with the director asked the person, why are you leaving? They went, it's too scary. And then they knew in that moment that they fucking had something.
Yeah.
And do you remember that now, like, iconic trailer of just everybody screaming in the cinema?
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah.
Some of those shots are from that initial test screening.
Feel it breathing on me.
Oh my God.
And one of the reasons why they did that marketing campaign is because they realised that, well, you can't really cut a trailer for a film that's 90% people sat watching TV.
Yeah, like, yeah, if you break it down, there's not much action, and obviously the monster or ghost is invisible, so you don't see anything. So yeah, I could see the struggle.
So they just cut a trailer of people's reaction to the film. And that's how they sold it. And they sold it as like, the scariest movie you've ever seen. And it's like those like testimonies, people walking out of like, it's so fucking scary. Which is quite old school, really, because that's how they used to advertise things like, the Blair Witch Project or The Exorcist. Like they would sell it based on the notoriety of it being a very scary movie. And they would use those testimonials in trailers and adverts to put it on TV. And yeah, it was successful enough to bankroll about 5 sequels, which means that guy got to live the Hollywood dream of selling the fuck out.
Yeah, I never really watched the sequels. I think I watched the second one, and I was just like, nah.
Yeah, like the idea did get driven into the ground, and the Paranormal Activity like timeline is so weird because so many of the films have alternate endings. Like from the very first one, I think there's like 3 alternate endings in that film. Like there's the one where she just stares at the camera, there's one where she breaks the guy's neck, and there's the one where she gets shot by the police.
Yeah.
And they've never really confirmed which one of those is the canon one until they made the sequels and they brought the lady back. And it's just, yeah. They had a good idea, and like many horror movies, they drove it into the ground, which more than anything, to me, says it was a successful horror movie. 'Cause it's not really a successful horror movie by Hollywood standards until you've made at least 4 bad sequels.
Exactly, like, that's just classic with every franchise, isn't it?
It's not a horror movie franchise until you've made like increasingly shittier sequels that fail to capture the spirit of the original. And speaking of, like, selling the fuck out, if you'd like to help the Fact Fiend channel sell the fuck out, we sell merch on our merch store in collaboration with Psycho, owned by the YouTuber Ross Boomstock. But in the meantime, Nisha, let's just talk horror movies for a moment.
Okay.
And do you have like just a moment like the Paranormal Activity, just like all the cupboards exploding? Like, do you have like a moment like that from cinema that just like sticks out in your mind? And while you're thinking of one, I should clarify for people. I'm like, yes, I know those moments aren't scary; they're surprising, but I still think on occasion they have been done well. And Paranormal Activity probably has 2 of the best ones, like in modern cinema, which is all the stuff exploding from the cupboards. And then that pool cleaner popping out the pool.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really good moment because like it plays on your expectations of it being scary. And then the actors themselves in that moment like, oh, can't believe we'll be fooled by that. And then, they double down on that bit later where like, the cupboards explode.
I feel like, because it's been so long since I've seen these films, I'm pretty sure Insidious had a moment like that. I'm trying to think, 'cause they were trying to go down the Paranormal Activity route.
But they failed because they hired known actors. So it's like, we're not...
Yeah. And then you saw the monster. You look like Darth Maul.
Yep. Always a mistake. We've talked about that before, haven't we? It's like, never show the monster. And if you do show the monster, only show like snippets of the monster.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we said before, what you imagine is scarier than what they show you. So it kind of, you just think, oh, it's just a guy in makeup or in costume. But I remember like Insidious started off kind of like Paranormal Activity, where they just have really tense build-up moments, and they'd be like, I can't remember like exact things, but I'm sure there was a moment where someone was banging on the door, like it was late at night, and I think the main guy actor, I forget his name, but I know he's in quite a few films.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess, I think it'll be Patrick Wilson, but while you're doing that I want to double check. So he says Insidious, yes?
Insidious, yeah. But yeah, he's like walking around his house at night, and then there's just
it's Patrick Wilson
banging on the door, and that shit me up because it's just so quiet.
Who is it?
I forget what film it is now, but I guess I'm going to have to look it up. And I remember it's just a really good visual more than anything, and it is still quite space. Like someone hanging laundry out on a washing line, and it's really windy, and the wind blows like a sheet off the washing line, and for a split second, the sheet forms around like the figure of a human.
Oh, yeah.
And then blows away. And I'll find the clip
yeah.
and, like, you know, it'll be credited with which movie it is if I can. If not, someone in the comments let us know. But I remember that being something that really scared me. Just because of, like, how interesting and unique a visual it was, in addition to, like, you know, just the surprise. Like, you know, that really great sound build-up of, like, you know, the wind whipping around. And, like, you know, the whooshing, all that good stuff.
I recognise that. I couldn't tell you what it was from, but I do remember that scene.
You can see the visual in your head, yes.
Another film that scared me, I don't know if it would now if I watched it again, was Cloverfield. Because again, that was the whole you don't see what it is.
Yeah, show don't tell until they just told you, yeah, it's an alien. You're like, fuck's sake. Oh god, like that film was like, it was so promising. Again, like that's a film that should just exist as a trailer. If I taught film in university, I would say, like, here's how you cut a good trailer, and I'd show Cloverfield, and I'd say, don't make Cloverfield, but cut your trailer like they cut the Cloverfield trailer.
I think I don't know this thing. I know I mention a lot of the same horror films because I can only remember the same few that freaked me out. I've probably mentioned this one before, that As Above, So Below, which is in the Paris catacombs.
Yes, very interesting place to set a horror film.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, the reason it scared me was because I don't like the thought of being, like, trapped underground and in small spaces, and that freaked me out.
It's like The Descent is a film that I always mention as being just a really solid horror movie. And I like The Descent as a good horror movie to rewatch as well, because I'm guessing spoilers for The Descent. Like, go watch it if you've not, but if you, like, you know, don't care about spoilers, I'm going to spoil it now. Some ladies go caving underground, which is already a really interesting place to set a horror movie, underground, where there's no light. And just there's, like, these weird nocturnal subhuman monsters that live down there. And they show up at about, like, I think, the hour mark into the film. But if you rewatch it, they're actually there the entire time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're in the background of a bunch of shots. There are many shots in the movie where they're just in the background, watching the main characters, but you don't see them because like the main characters, you're not aware they're there yet.
What? I'm gonna have to rewatch that.
Yeah, that's what it makes it a good film
God.
to rewatch, and then it's just like really well acted as well.
Yeah, I've not seen that for about, I want to say, like, over 10 years. So
I would highly recommend The Descent as a horror movie, and it's like I don't know if I'm claustrophobic as much as I just don't like the idea of being underground and trapped, which I don't think makes me claustrophobic. I think they just call that common sense. Like, I don't want to be trapped underground with a monster.
Yeah, I just don't hate the idea of getting stuck and just being stuck in a small space and not being able to move. Like, I have nightmares about, like, not being able to move, like waking up and just not being able to move anything except my eyes. That's terrifying.
So they have that one bit in the film, it's like one of the most uncomfortable bits of, like, you know, horror movie cinema I've seen. It's just where they get trapped crawling through the rocks. And he's like, yeah, fuck that. Fuck that.